Hello, scrappers, recyclers, and all those investors and others that are interested in the world of precious metals, industrial metals, and the news that affects our industry. Welcome to Shark Scrapper Live, where every week we spend some time talking about precious metals and industrial metals and things that are going on around our industry. It is great to be here. I'm looking forward to having an awesome hour talking about what we love to talk about. I'd like to give a big old howdy to HH Recycling, Scrooge McDuckin, Dave Fillet, or Scrapping Irish, Roger at CU Scrapping. Welcome to the show. Great to have everybody here. Scrapping Lou, welcome. Electronic Scrapper, great to have you in the house. Always good to see everybody, and I hope you all had a really good, productive week and made some money. All right, well, our precious metal for today is silver. So let's get right into talking about silver. We start out with the APMEX chart. Now, again, I need to remind everybody that I am not sponsored by APMEX. I get no compensation from them. It's just convenient charts to use. However, if anybody knows the folks at APMEX and they'd like to talk to me about sponsoring, I'd be open to a discussion. Hint, hint, hint. Anyway, on to silver. Now, the other thing that I want to remind everybody is that having some silver and gold in your portfolio is an important thing to do. I only recommend holding physical gold and silver. The paper certificates, well, sometimes they're not worth the paper they're printed on. But if you actually are holding on to that round or that bar or that coin, then you actually hold your asset. And that's the way to keep it. Now, these things can get heavy. And so, if you accumulate a lot of it, well, then you have a little problem of, how you're going to store it. But that's a different problem to solve. Silver price right now, 34.08 US dollars per ounce. And we can see here for the 3-day or 24-hour period that it's down 0.17. I'm not that concerned about that. Let's jump over here to the 3-day. We're up 0.32. And, what's interesting here for the 3-day was we had some ups and downs going along here. We took a bit of a drop right here, but have climbed back out now. And, really we didn't go into, have a lot of serious movement in the 3-day period. For the week, we see a little bit of a different story here. For the week, we're up 4%. And that is a pretty good signature right there. Look at that. That's a nice climb, up 4% for the week. For the month, we're also up about 4% for the month. A little bit different look to it. We had kind of a drop off before we started climbing back out again. But it's always good to be on the upside of these charts. In the 3-month view, we're up 11%. 11%. That is some really good numbers there. For those of us that have silver, we're loving this because it means that our holdings have really climbed nicely. Year to date, we're up 16.95%. And for the year, we're up 45.5%. I'm telling you, that is some awesomeness, for those of us that have some silver and we're looking to what we can do with it. But there's something that's important to think about here. The reason why silver is going up. And last week, we saw that gold was going up. The reasons for this is because there's so much turmoil going on out in the world right now. We've got the tariffs and the tariff wars that are taking place. We have literal wars that are taking place. And so, whenever you have this uncertainty going on out in the economic world, investors will go to safe havens like gold and silver. Now, one of the things that I think is really interesting that I can do with the APMEX chart is I can compare what silver is doing relative to these other uh, indices. And here we can see the Dow Jones, and this is for the 1 year, and we can see how silver has climbed up relative to the Dow. Now, this is a little clearer here if we just go to the year to date look. So this is just since the beginning of this year. And we can see that, up until around late January, both silver and the Dow were climbing a bit. And then they started separating. And here we see the Dow dropping off very rapidly as the new administration started talking about tariffs and trade issues and those kind of things. This very clearly shows us investors going into safe things like silver and gold. Now, you all know that I enjoy looking at the trading economics charts, because one of the things I can do over here is I can pull up the candlesticks and we can get some really good information. Now, again, I'm not going to try to teach you how to do candlestick technical investing. There are plenty of sources out there. It's a really fascinating way to look at stocks and things of that nature. But what is really interesting here is if you look at the back around October, we saw these drops as we were going into the election cycle. But this was a period where there was, of course, the uncertainty of the election cycle going on, but there was also a certain amount of fiscal and economic stability. The Dow and all the stock indices were doing well. The markets were going strong, and so you saw silver and gold dropping off. The election comes along, and then we see silver starting to come back up again. After the new administration takes over here in the January timeframe, we see the green candlesticks, silver's going up as investors start to get a little bit nervous about what the new administration is talking about, where things are going. And you can see the size of some of these candlesticks are pretty good. That suggests that, so right here, this is a 1 year chart, and each candlestick is 1 day, and you can see how much the price of silver went up just in 1 day, from 32 to 33.30. So 32.70, almost 32.80, up to 32. Here we go from 33.23 here, and we climb all the way up to 33.76. So this makes the candlesticks, an interesting thing to look at, to kind of get a feel for what is going on with the markets. And more of the industrial level, the big traders, so that we can kind of get an idea of what they're thinking. All right, now I'm going to go back to the line chart here, and I am going to bring up the forecast for silver. And I want to draw your attention to this part of the chart right here that shows the silver price climbing, and we're going to get up to 37 something. So let's see, silver increased $4.89 US troy ounce, or 16.94% since the beginning of 2025. But silver is expected to trade at 34.63 by the end of this quarter, which is coming up pretty close, because we're like at the end of the quarter here. We're in March. And they're looking forward to 37.35 in the next 12 months. So, if you're if you don't have a lot of silver and you want to increase your silver holdings, you're probably okay to buy some silver, but just pay really, really careful attention to the premiums that you're paying. Because, while we're looking at maybe gaining another $3 to $4 an ounce, that could easily be the premium that you're going to pay. So be very careful with the premium that you're going to pay on your silver. There is still some room to go here. So if you're a little bit shy on your silver holdings and you want to increase those, you've got some room here, but not a whole lot. It's going to be tight. It's going to be tight. If you have silver, you're in a good position because you could do some selling right now if you wanted to, make back some money. It all depends on why you're holding that silver in your portfolio. I am not buying. I don't like to buy in this range, but if we start breaking out into the 40s, then yeah, I'll probably be doing some selling, because that's a good range for selling, and that's usually when I end up selling, when we're in the above 45. 45 to 50, and I'm probably going to be selling some of my silver. I don't ever sell all of my silver, but when it gets really high, I will sell off some in order to, do a little bit of getting some funding, getting some of those monies back in my pocket again. All right, so let's see. What are you all thinking about silver? Let's see here. What kind of comments are going on with silver here in the comment section? A lot of people saying hey to each other. Let's see. Mike's Meltdown has joined us. Mike, great to have you here. And Scrap and Lou, I think I answered your question there. So if not, drop a comment and I'll try to address a little bit more. But I think we covered that. Okay, let's see. Scrapping on the Fly is saying that his yard is telling him that copper and all scrap prices are bottom out right now. I'm not exactly sure what it is that they're, and we're not talking about copper right now. We're going to talk about aluminum here in a little bit. I would push them harder on that discussion. Ask them why. Ask them why that's what they think is going on. What's their basis for that? And what are they planning on doing, about that? So, Roger brings up a really good comment, and we'll talk about this more when we get over in the aluminum discussion here today, but that they're taking a bigger cut on copper because of the volatility right now. So, that if you think we as the short term, kind of the person involved in this are scratching their heads trying to figure out what to do, just think of those scrap yards, because they're dealing with tons of material, and the volatility in the pricing can have huge impact on whether they make money or lose money on the deals that they're doing. So, and let's see, Scrooge McDuck. Oh, I think I said hello. I think we did that already. Okay, I'm not seeing anybody talking about what they're planning on doing with their silver. Everybody really wants to dive into the aluminum real quick here, it looks like. So, Scrap and Pallet Man, Paul, great to have you here, man. Always a pleasure, sir. All right, so watch your silver. Be careful if you're buying silver right now. Be really, really careful of those premiums. hopefully you have some good relationships with some coin shops or pawn shops in your area where you might be able to get a little less premium tacked on. And certainly if you're going to be buying from someone like APMEX or JM Bullion, you can usually get a lower premium by buying more of it and buying some sort of round or bar instead of an actual mint coin. It's definitely worth taking a look at. All right, so it is time now to have our safety discussion of the week. And I tell you, as I always do, the safety discussion that we're gonna have this week was I was out driving up in the mountains, and we had some really interesting weather coming through, and things got really foggy in certain areas. And so I thought to myself, that's a really good topic. And here's one of the things that happens, right? So we're talking about driving in low vis conditions. And usually, when you're in something like snow, your mind will get you to think, I need to slow down, I need to give more space. But when this happens, it's really challenging because, sometimes it can happen that fast, right? So, sometimes you can just be driving along and all of a sudden that fog can be like a wall that you drive into. And so you're kind of like, what do I do? What do I do here? And your sensory cues get really messed up really fast. We humans have a pretty good ability when we're driving to judge pretty closely how fast we're driving because we get used to how quickly the trees are going by or the fence posts are going by or those kind of things. Our brain just sort of registers this, and we can stay pretty close to a speed limit based on those cues. When those cues go away, it messes up our sensory capacity to have an understanding of how fast we're driving. And if you can't see a lot, you start to you got to pay attention to your speedometer. But if you've been driving at a highway speed for the last few hours, going 65, 70 miles an hour, slowing down, you just feel like you're slowing down way too much. And because you've been desensitized to speed, and now you need to slow down a lot. And you're looking at your speedometer going, oh man, that can't be right. I know I'm going slower. It can really trick you up. But there are some things that you can definitely do that can help you when you are in these kind of conditions. So we're going to go here to the National Weather Service site because they provide really good guidance here, and this is basically the stuff that we've learned. First of all, slow down. Now, it was interesting when I was driving along because, I slowed down, right? But there were people that were going past me that just weren't slowing down. And I'm thinking to myself, what do you think? What are you doing? You can't. I mean, the fog where I was got really thick to the point where it was really hard to see cars in front of me. And yet these folks were still just blasting on past me. And at any minute, I'm expecting to come across an accident. And there was a really bad accident out west yesterday or the day before because they had a lot of blowing wind and smoke. And they had in Texas, I believe it was. And so they went into into this like blizzard blackout conditions. They had a really bad accident. There were fatalities, multiple fatalities, a lot of serious injuries because you had this pileup on an interstate. And then, once the pileup starts, a lot of people just sort of add to it, more cars banging into each other. And then it gets, really dangerous after that. So slow down, increase the spacing with the to the car in front of you. Um, Make sure that you've got your lights on. I mean, if you're driving in the daytime and you have an older vehicle that doesn't have the automatic daylight lights, then turn on your lights. Do not use your high beams. All that does is reflect the bright light right back into your eyeballs. So stay on low beams. If you have fog lights, turn on your fog lights. And if it gets really, really bad, visibility gets really low, turn on your emergency or your hazard warning lights so that you're bringing more attention to yourself. If you get to near zero conditions, then and only then do you want to pull over and stop. It's really dangerous to pull over and stop. So if you can pull over into a parking lot or a business where you are off of the road completely, that's the best thing to do. But if you have no choice but to pull over on a road, get as far to the side as you can. And then pay attention to this note here that is in the National Weather Service site. This is really important, and it's something that a lot of us wouldn't think of. Pull over, put the car in park, set your emergency brake, and then turn on your hazard warning lights, but turn off your lights. You don't want to make it look like you're driving. And we're used to, as drivers, we're used to seeing taillights of a car that's moving ahead of us and assuming that they're moving. So if you pull over and you turn off your lights, but you leave your hazard warning lights on, then our brain is used to saying, oh, that car isn't moving. So really good recommendation from the National Weather Service to pay attention to if you have to pull over. But again, only if the visibility gets so bad that it's just so dangerous that you can't see anymore. This is some of the scariest time to be driving when you're in these low vis conditions like this, because there are so many people that won't take any of the proper actions. And even if you're trying to be as safe as you can possibly be, yeah, you're still at risk. So, hey, you know what? While we're here, let's go take a look at what's happening. We've got some tornado watches over here on the east coast of the U.S. These are all red flag fire warnings over here, and the tornado these warnings. If you've been paying attention to the weather, you saw they started over here. They moved across the country. We had some of the biggest outbreaks. I mean, historical tornado outbreaks going on down here over the last couple of days, and that weather system is now over here. Again, if you're the two places that I recommend you check out the weather, National Weather Service, and then on YouTube a channel called Ryan Hall Y'all. They did a fantastic job over the course of the last couple of days of the outbreaks. Live streaming. They have tornado chasers. They've got traffic cam hookups. So, really good channel there. Ryan Hall, y'all. The two places that I recommend that you get your weather and keep up to speed on what's going on. So let us see what kind of comments folks have talked about here while we've been talking about the fog. Yep, don't use your high beams, Roger. Absolutely. Scrap and pallet man. You're a coastie, so you know the rules. Trust your gauges. Trust your gauges. Let's see. Mike's got an interesting comment. Add in the car noises being absent in an EV, and it adds another level. That's a really good point, because I don't drive EVs, so but I can understand what you're saying. We are used to what our car sounds like when we are driving the car, and so we can. If we're in an EV, we lose that audio signal that says I'm slowing down or I'm speeding up, or that's a really good point, Mike. Really good point. You really got to trust your gauges there. Um, yeah, Plane Scrapper. By the way, welcome, Plane Scrapper. Great to have you here. I try to keep back just far enough to see the tail lights. Yeah, because yeah, I mean, you want to leave more space. You want to be able to see them in case they start to slow down. That's one of those judgment calls that you got to make while it's playing out. Um, so yeah, and yeah, don't use the high beams. Absolutely, don't use the high beams. Uh, and Scrap and Pallet Man's talking about an issue that he came up to and came upon a wreck there because of the fog. Yeah, that's right. And it was interesting because there was a wreck on the other side of the road from where I was driving. This just the other day, and so clearly somebody wasn't paying attention on the other side there. Daniel says that the accident that I was talking about was in Houston, and oh man, that's a baby and a toddler. Oh man, that is so sad, so sad. Scrooge McDuckin brings up a good point. If you do have to stop on the side of the road, keep your seatbelts on. Very, very important. Yep. And also try to reduce just the distractions in your car. Because you're going to be, you might have the radio going, you may be having a conversation with someone, and you do want to, you want your mind to be right on what you're doing there. Scrapping on the fly it brings up a good point here. 40-mile-an-hour impact is not so soft. You are absolutely correct on that one. Uh, eh, I tell you what, uh, I I had an experience in a Beetle that was not that was a close call here too, in my high school days, and there were three of us in this Beetle going skiing in upstate New York. And so the reason there were three of us was because, well, we needed the rest of the space for all of our clothes and our skis. And I mean, we had stuff strapped onto this thing. And man, it was snowing and blizzard, and we could barely see outside of this thing. And of course, when you're in high school, you're invincible. But somehow we managed to survive that. Uh, Yeah, this is a good point too. Sunglasses can help. It depends on the type of sunglasses, certainly. And they have these new glasses out there that you can get that are supposed to be, supposed to enhance your vision. They're specially designed to enhance your vision in low vis conditions. I haven't used them, so I cannot speak authoritatively on them. I don't know if any of you have used any of these special glasses for low vis kind of driving, but I haven't. So I don't know if they're any good or not. Um, let's see. Jay Wall, welcome to the show. He says here in Arkansas we had dust storms that you can't see past the front of your car, and so they always tell us, pull over, turn everything off, use your seatbelt, and stay put. Okay, yeah. Um, I've been in a couple blizzards that were that bad. Never a dust storm that was that bad, but I was in a blizzard coming out of Houston back when I was an ensign in the Navy, and I was driving cross country for a duty station transfer, and man, that was just miserable, miserable driving conditions. Andrew Powell, welcome from New Zealand. Great to have you here, sir. And then going all the way across the other side of the world, we have Mr. Matthews coming in from the United Kingdom. Great to have you here, sir. As always, E-Waste Jill is in the house. And Jill was saying at one time she was in fog so thick that she couldn't see the next white line on the interstate. Yep, that's when you're getting into some really thick fog, and that is no fun whatsoever. Whatsoever. And Mike's meltdown is saying, never underestimate the stupidity of the average human. Well, there's a statement and a half, isn't it? I rode trains for nearly 20 years, and we were in plenty of accidents with vehicles. One I recall, a woman waiting on a stoplight on the track. Oh, God, yeah, don't even get me started about trains and people. And I could do, you know what? I'm going to make a note here. We'll do that as a safety topic one of these days. Trains and cars, because boy, that's a real good safety topic. So maybe we'll do that next week or coming up here. Polarized glasses, yeah, because of the way they adjust the light for you. Yellow tinted glasses help with visibility in the fog and snowstorms. Okay, alrighty. Blue blockers. Okay, alrighty. That's the type of glasses. So again, I've never used them, so I'm hoping that you guys have some experience with that, and because those are some good recommendations. Mike's meltdown, talking about the train wreck. Yeah, we'll talk about train wrecks because man, those things, God, yeah, just unbelievable. Yeah, so we had, it's a real good discussion about low visibility and the things you have to pay attention to, and the things that you need to do. It's not worth taking the risk. Just slow down. You want to get there while you're still alive, not get killed on the road. So definitely watch out, pay attention in low vis, because that can be really dangerous. All right. Well, it is time now to get into our aluminum discussion for this week. And what we're going to do here is the aluminum discussion. First, I'm going to do the usual thing, talk about the prices, but we can't really talk about the forecast of aluminum and where it's going without talking about what's happening with tariffs right now and stuff. So we're going to morph right into the world of tariffs. Real quickly, I want to remind everybody that this is not a political channel. So we're going to address the tariffs from the perspective of what's going on in our scrap world and the kind of things that we expect to see and could see. So please leave the politics out of your comments, and let's stay focused on what's happening relative to our world of scrap aluminum and aluminum prices and such. So we see here, this is the trading economics chart. We are on a 1-year chart, and we can see that, for the year, we're getting up there. We're up nice highs here. What are they saying? That the futures rose to 2,700 a ton, not far from the 9-month high of 2,730 that was set back in February, so back here. And it's due to lower supply from major producers that magnified the expectation of stronger demand. But what I really want to call your attention to is right here, that China produced 44 million tons of aluminum in 2024. That's the most on record. But their output will be reduced to slow considerably this year because they capped production at 25 million tons. I'm not quite sure how that played, what they're saying here, because they capped it at 25 million tons in 2017 because they want to prevent an excess supply and aid in carbon emission targets. I think what they're saying here is that we can expect China to cap the output in 2025. What that's going to be is, could be significant. because they have been very low in the past. Um, so combine that with the Chinese economy kind of coming around a little bit, and you've got some increased demand signals, and throw in what's going on here in the United States with the tariffs, and boy, you've got a lot of formula for some increases in aluminum prices. Now, real quick, let's go into the candlesticks and kind of and zoom in here on this period here that we're in right now. Here's January through where we're at right now. And essentially, what we're seeing is we had this period of climb. It dropped. It went through a couple of ups and downs here before it climbed up to the high in February that they were talking about. And then it dropped back off again, but has now climbed back up. And if you see when you see this mixture of these red and green candlesticks, bouncing around like this, well, if you look back, you can see where these have happened before, and that suggests that something is about to happen again. This may be why some of your yards are telling you that they think that some of the prices may have bottomed out. Now, this is aluminum. This is not copper. But this is also going to be relatively short-lived because, as we're going to talk about here in a minute, we got some challenges here in the U.S. when it comes to aluminum. All right, let's go back to the line chart. Oops, got to do that first. Now we can go back to the line chart and let's take a look at what is in store. And if we look at this part of the chart right here, what this is suggesting is that we're going to see aluminum come to record highs. So the discussion part of this basically says aluminum is expected to trade at 27.86 per US ton by the end of the quarter, and that the analysts are looking forward to 28.70 over the course of the next 12 months. So that's record high territory for aluminum. Now, what that is, and combine that with some of the things that some of you all are being told by your yards that they're expecting it to bottom out. And I think what might be going on is we're going to see some temporary bottoming out here, but then things are probably going to start to pick up again. And of course, a lot of it depends on where you're located too. That's really important, is where your yards are located relative to the plants that reuse aluminum. So having gotten to that part, let's talk a little bit here on what does the tariff situation mean. Richard Holbert, welcome. Everyday Solars, welcome. Great to have you all here. We're going to address this from, as I was thinking about this week, and I had some comments on some folks that had some comment exchange with folks about restarting mills and those kind of things. And so I got to thinking, this is a really good discussion. What is the U.S. capacity to make aluminum, and what will it? What are the expectations for restarting aluminum plants? Now, the tariffs that are being imposed by the current U.S. administration, they have stated that there's two reasons for the tariffs. One of those reasons is because they want to try to get the U.S. industrial base going again. They want to open, they want to motivate companies to open plants and make stuff here, and that can be the outcome of a tariff if it's handled properly. Um, the prices go up on the goods that use that material. So, anything that uses aluminum, we're going to see the prices go up. And the idea is that motivates, in this case, U.S. companies to make either open plants or increase their capacity so that they can take advantage of those higher prices and bring up the capacity of, uh, again, the U.S. manufacturing, and that in the long run, things can stabilize. Now, um, one of the things historically that has occurred, though, is that the prices really don't come down because the U.S. manufacturers, they just increase their prices to take advantage of the decrease, and or because the imported goods are going to cost more, so the U.S. manufacturers raise their prices accordingly, and they may or may not actually open more facilities. We saw this uh, in a previous tariff that was applied to washing machines and it was funny because they were applied to washing machines, and then the cost of dryers went up as well because, well, when somebody buys a washing machine, they usually buy a washer. So historically, things don't always play out the way governments intend when they use tariffs. Now, I'm not saying tariffs are bad. I'm just saying that there are aspects of tariffs that need to be managed to accomplish what it is you're trying to do if one of your goals is to increase your indigenous capability. So I started doing some looking, and one of the things to understand about the aluminum tariffs that are important to us right now as scrappers is that the 232 tariffs are not being applied to recycled aluminum. So it's only on primary aluminum. Primary aluminum is aluminum that's made by smelting bauxite to get virgin or primary aluminum. So recycled aluminum, there's no tariff on that at this point. And so we also don't have retaliatory tariffs on the recycled aluminum. So it raises the interesting question for us as scrappers is, well, we're selling into that market, that secondary aluminum market, and there's no tariffs on that. So is there going to be? Are we going to get more money out of that? You might say to yourself, well, if the price of primary aluminum goes up, then would the price of the secondary aluminum go up as well? And I guess it's going to depend on the product. There are some products that require primary aluminum because secondary aluminum is going to have lower qualities in some cases, depending upon the mill that's working it. Or what it's being used for. There's some products that are made, purely out of recycled or secondary aluminum. So it's unclear if tariffs on primary aluminum, which is going to increase the cost of primary aluminum, is going to increase the cost of secondary aluminum. But I think it's a pretty safe bet that it would probably go up. Because people would try to start using more secondary aluminum because it's not being tariffed or taxed. So there's that potential discussion for what could happen with the secondary market. Now, we have some folks here from other countries, so I apologize, but these numbers that I'm going to talk about here are US based capacity, because that's part of the question that I was trying to ask myself. Could the United States make up for the aluminum that if If manufacturers said, well, then I don't want to pay the tariff or the tax on imported aluminum, so I'm going to buy from a U.S. smelter. Do we even have the capacity here in the U.S. to do that? So it's a little bit hard to get specific numbers, but I've got pretty good information here. So we're looking back in 2023. Now, these are comparison things. So back 2023, the U.S. was producing 750 to 800,000 tons of primary aluminum, and we had 6 smelters in operation. Compare that to we were producing 3.3 million tons of secondary aluminum. So we have a lot of secondary plants, not too many smelters. The primary reason for this is that making primary aluminum is very energy intensive. 30 to 40% of the operating costs of an aluminum smelter is energy. And so that's why a lot of the US smelters went out of business, because the energy costs were just too high. So now we compare that to what we imported, and we were importing 5.5-ish million tons. So you can see we were importing a lot more aluminum than we had the capacity to make, and that's 2024. We have now dropped to 4 smelters, and our capacity has gone down, as a result. Now, at a certain point, back in 1980, we had 30 operating smelters in the United States, and now we're down to 4. So that's a huge drop. And we import of all the aluminum that we're importing, 3.2 million metric tons is coming from Canada. So the bulk of the aluminum that we bring in is coming from Canada. And that's going to make sense. It doesn't have to get shipped in. It's right there. So it would make sense that that's where it would come from. Okay, now, can we restart? If you say to yourself, well, wait a minute, if back in 1980 we had 30 smelters, shouldn't we be able to just bring those plants online? The answer is maybe. So there are, as I was researching the subject, I found that there were a number of plants that when they were shut down, other smelters that when they were shut down, they were disposed of, right? So the company that owned them sold off the property. The plants were not only decommissioned, they were destroyed, and other things came in and took their place. I was not able to find a number anywhere in my research, which may just show how bad I am at doing research, but I was unable to find a number that told me how many idle plants could be restarted right now and how long that would take. I was able to find some interesting statistics on what it would cost to build a brand new plant. Now, remember that a lot of the US plants are very old. They're using older technology, and because of that, they use a lot more energy and they produce a lot more air pollution, greenhouse gases. In fact, one of the things that was done under the Biden administration was they pumped a lot of money into aluminum and steel plants to help them invest in things to, air scrubbers and upgrade their plants to use less energy and those kind of things. But getting back to the question of what it would take to restart I'm sorry, I just saw a piece of information from Board Sort that I want to get to. And by the way, welcome Board Sort. Great to have you here, and Jim there. So a new plant would cost on the order of $4 billion per million tons of production. All right, so it's if the plant makes if the plant is capable of making a million tons a year, it's going to cost about $4 billion, and it would take around 3 years to build that plant. And a plant requires something on the order of a gigawatt of power to run. So that's like 800,000 homes, right? So you're building the plant, but you have to make sure that the power infrastructure exists to support that plant. Um, so could we in the U.S. make up the difference? And in primary aluminum, probably not going to happen. We're talking about a huge sum of money, a huge impact in energy grids. And you're talking about, if we started right now, 3+ years to create these plants. Now, again, what I was not able to figure out is, what is available in the way of plants that were shut down recently that might be able to get restarted. Hard to say. I also found it interesting that when they talked about plants that were shut down and stuff, they were talking about the number of employees that working at the plants, and so these plants, they have anywhere from 400 to 600 people at these plants. So you're also not talking about bringing a huge number of people back into the workforce if you create the plant. 400 to 600 people, maybe 1,000 at the most, depending upon the size of the plant. So there's also, how many people are we bringing back? But my real question was, could we recover the capacity that we need? So, I think purely from the perspective of, can we recover capacity in primary aluminum, I just don't think the numbers are there. We're already making a lot of secondary aluminum, and so the question would be, could secondary aluminum come in and take up some of that load? All right, I have seen the chat just going nuts, so let's go up here, and I'm going to try to jump in here on the chat and see what's been going on here on the chat. I'm trying to get up here to where we started talking about aluminum. Okay. Mr. Matthews probably made the first aluminum content saying that he has a load of aluminum. Yeah, you guys put too many syllables in it. It's too hard to say. E-Waste Mike, welcome to the show. He was in a bad fog, but then he sobered up. Okay. All right, Roger's taking in a load of extruded on Monday. Very cool. My local yard has been doing something weird. When I bring in all those heat sinks, they've been taking them as sheet. I don't know if they just, this yard, I'm finding that they don't have nearly as many categories as yards I worked with in Florida. And so I need to find out, do they just call it sheet, and they're separating it later on, or what's going on there? Because it's a bin full of heat sinks. Normally that would go as either extruded or MLC, and it's just, they're taking it as sheet. So I don't know what's going on with that. Let's see. Looking here for aluminum comments. Solars has got some vintage electronics, but hopefully we'll get to see some of those later on tonight. Roger Hulbert says he is stockpiling his stuff for now. No need to sell, and hope the prices will go up. Very good point. In this kind of market, if you don't have to sell that aluminum and you don't need the cash flow, then by all means, hang on to it and watch to see if those prices go up. Absolutely. Good play there. That's a smart one. Mr. Matthews can't hoard stuff because he's run out of room. Well, maybe if you get rid of some of that stuff you have on your green screen. uh, let's see. Yeah, Roger, that's a good point. The recycled aluminum uses a lot less energy. A lot less energy. As you pointed out, 95% less energy. So, aluminum, recycled secondary aluminum is much less expensive in that regard. Uh, so that's interesting that one of my yards takes taxes out on people with business accounts, and then they give you a 1099. Interesting. Um, I mean, if here in the United States, income has to get reported. So, if you're making money, you're supposed to report income uh, on your income taxes. If you're a business, you can deduct your costs, and so costs of goods is an expense that you can deduct. And so it's that's an interesting, it's an interesting challenge. Just another part of being in business. But I have never had any of my B2B companies uh, tax me or take out the taxes from the aluminum. That's interesting. Ba-ba-ba-da. Yeah, Roger's kind of saying the same thing. He's not sure what those taxes are. 1099 are wages. Yeah, I don't get that either, Roger. I'm a little bit confused on that one. Uh, Jim saying he just brought in 73 pounds of aluminum cast. Yep. Board short. Chris is joining us. He participated in a REMA webinar last week, and believe it or not, the primary concern was being able to obtain wear parts for shredders. Yeah, Chris, I saw that in some of the emails that they have sent out. By the way, those of you that aren't familiar with REMA, Recycled Metals Association, used to be ISRI, Institute for Scrap Recyclers, I think was ISRI. So, but it's a trade organization for the recycling industry. Chris and I are members of it, and they provide us with a lot of really good information and insights and things of that nature. Um, but it is really interesting, Chris, that one of the primary concerns amongst a lot of the big recyclers is wear parts for the shredders. And Chris, I don't correct me if I'm wrong, but I think that they are still excluded in the 232. So I think, or did they get wrapped up under the full exclusions, and REMA is trying to get them excluded again? I kind of got confused on the discussion there. But you can imagine if the big scrap yards had to start paying another 25% on the parts in the big shredders, that would have to get passed along somewhere, which would mean they would be reducing the prices that they can pay, or they would be losing money or making less money. uh, let's see. Scrapping on the Fly is talking about what they were having to pay there, why they had to give the Anything over 600 requires a 1099 reportable. Most don't do that. Yeah, I need to look into that because I remember that was a thing. That was a thing with YouTube as well. One of the reasons why a lot of people had to fill out tax paperwork, YouTubers, whether they were U.S. citizens or not, was because they were going to have to get a statement if YouTube paid them over $600. Um, of course, I get the tax statement from YouTube and I give it to my tax attorney and they figure out what they have to do because I'm not smart enough to keep up with that. Oh my. Um, let's see. A lot of question on so there's some question about the taxes there. So, righty. Let's see. I'm looking here for more talk about the aluminum. Yeah, Roger, I agree. Is it? I mean, a lot. I've had yards that have called it MLC. I've had yards that called it clip. I've had yards that called it extruded. And of course, they're not actually analyzing it to see what the true alloy is. They're just taking it based on what it looks like, how it was processed. And so that's always an interesting point. They can't. They're not going to use an analyzer on everything we bring in. And they box it up and ship it off as to their buyers. So it's just interesting how different yards deal with it in different ways. And sometimes if you deal with multiple yards, it does get a little bit confusing and head scratching. And the one thing that I found is it doesn't do any good to argue with the guy that's there processing it, at the buyback line or something, because he's just doing what his boss told him. If you get to know the yard owners or managers well enough, then you can have that discussion with them. I when I was down in Florida and I knew those folks really well, I was able to have those discussions. But I'm still getting to know the folks up here, and I don't know them quite well enough yet to have that level of discussion with them. Well, look, folks, we have had some really interesting discussions, and we are not going to um solve these things here. What I'm trying to do is just have the discussion and just give you all a little bit more to think about as we deal with what's going on. For most of us, we have very little influence in what happens with these tariffs and the price increases, what it does to us. But if we're paying attention, we might be able to, as small time scrappers and recyclers, make a little bit more. And I think the issue right now is if you don't need the cash flow from your aluminum, maybe hang on to it and let those prices go up. Might be advantageous to you. You could also take the approach of selling a little bit consistently every week or every other week so that you are keeping some cash flow, but you're always holding back a little bit to get some more in the future. And then, of course, sometimes you just don't have the room and you got to sell it when you got to sell it, and you're just hoping that the prices are good. Well, at this point, it is time for us to get on over to Ireland because Scrapping Irish has most likely already started his live stream. So if you have autoplay enabled, you will be redirected across the pond to Ireland, where I hope to see you all. If you do not have autoplay enabled, then please go on to YouTube, type in Scrapping Irish. You'll get it'll pop up and show you that he's live. And then you can join us over there. You never know how that discussion is going to play out. Sometimes we carry on from where we've left off here. Sometimes it's entirely new things. And Scrapping Irish has a new toy that he was playing with, if any of you caught his videos this week. So I'm hoping we'll learn more about his new toy. All right, everybody, we'll see you over in Ireland. If we don't, have a safe week